Now 135 more coming in today, being flown in to the state, and we know there'll be more children, probably up to around 1,200. So, the question is, they may be fine today, but what will it look like tomorrow, the next week, or the next week, or the next month? And they say that they're supposed to be up here for 120 days, but once again, that begs the question: if you're not controlling the borders, and we keep seeing more of these children and teenagers coming across the border illegally, and you're not going to secure the borders, what makes us think that it's only going to be 120 days? It's just going to get worse.
Communities are up in arms. Let me say that again so you can hear me. The people who live in communities are up in arms. Illegal immigrants being bused and flown to their towns amidst security concerns, health concerns, and the real problem of who is going to pay for all this. On the other side, those who chastise protesters for scaring a bunch of kids who have done nothing more than be here thanks to someone else as they try to escape murderous gangs and poverty in their own country. How dare we, for 1 second, deny them a chance at freedom, they say. The two hardline sides in the current immigration debate with no easy answers. Let us welcome into MidPoint. Mario Lopez is president of the Hispanic Leadership Fund, and Jessica Vaughn is director of policy studies for the Center for Immigration Studies. I believe we have both of them with us here today. I welcome you both into MidPoint.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, Mario, I am told that we have you. We do not have Jessica. We are efforting to get her right now. So, Mario, let me go ahead and begin with you. Hopefully we can see you here in just a moment and make sure that we can see you. Let me ask you, first of all, about what is going on in California right now. The people, the citizens who are blockading buses, who are protesting, who are up in arms at community meetings. Is it not fair to say that they certainly have a right to be upset about what's happening to their community?
Well, look, I mean, everyone has a right to be upset because this is a very frustrating situation. So I don't blame anyone for being frustrated with this, with the humanitarian crisis that's going on right now on the Texas-Mexico border. It's crazy. I do think that, you know, it's a little, I don't know what you want to call it, misplaced maybe, because the fact is that even if we want to deport these folks, we have to process them and you know, identify who they are and where they come from and do all that stuff. And so blocking buses from being able to take folks in order to be processed seems like it's just only going to delay the situation. But certainly I do understand the frustrations of folks all across the country who want a real solution to this issue.
But is it not just that point as well, that the people who are on the ground right now, the citizens themselves, they don't feel as if there are any solutions whatsoever, that it's simply as business the same day, and they don't feel as if anybody in authority is listening to them and trying to at least settle it in some small way?
I'm sorry, say that question again?
Is it not fair to say, though, that these are people who are upset about what is happening and they don't feel as if anybody is listening to them, that they're not trying to at least do something in order to stop the flood of immigrants into their town?
Right. And no, and again, that is completely understandable. And that's something that, you know, we can fix this problem once and for all. This is not a new situation. This has been going on for 10, 12, 14 years. We've had this immigration issue that really needs to be solved. And the best way that we can do that is by a combination of having substantial border security measures, which have increased over the years, but we're an area where we can still do better. And also to fix the legal immigration process so that we have an orderly way to process folks who do want to immigrate legally to the United States, and not the current mess, which is also a bureaucratic nightmare. I mean, it's nearly impossible to immigrate legally to the United States. And that is a problem that we have to fix. And those two things really go hand in hand if we want to get a handle on this issue once and for all.
Okay, Mario, I'm going to ask you to hold on, if you would, please, for just a couple of moments, because we are now joined by Oklahoma Congressman Jim Bridenstine, and it is an interesting story that he tells with regard to trying to find out what is going on at the ground level. Congressman, are you there? And thanks for joining us.
I am. Thank you for having me.
Tell us, if you would please, briefly the story that, yes, we can. Tell us, if you would please, briefly, the story that started this all, because you attempted to find out what was going on at ground level, yet you were stopped by members of HHS.
That's right. So I went down to Fort Sill, which is an Army base here in Oklahoma. I represent the 1st District of Oklahoma. I'm on the Armed Services Committee, so I visit all the bases here in Oklahoma. I went down there, I visited with the Commanding General. We had a great conversation about air defense artillery. Are you there?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
We had a great conversation about air defense artillery, the fires brigades that are down there, military modernization. So we talked about national security issues and national defense issues. And then I told them I wanted to visit the HHS facility, the Health and Human Services facility that is housing these unaccompanied alien children. UACs is what they're called by HHS. And he said, look, that's not my mission, but certainly if you want to go over there, you can. I went over there. They had a barracks there, just like any other military barracks. It looks like bachelor housing, except this time it had a chain link fence, a newly built chain link fence all around the facility. And then that chain link fence had cloth on it so that you couldn't see through it and nobody could see out. And we drove around it a couple of times. All we wanted to do was find an access point, a gate guard, if you will, somebody who could make a radio call and see if we could talk to the person who was in charge of the facility. Interestingly, there was no access point. There was no gate guard. It was sealed down, chain link fence. But we drove around a couple of times. Finally, we saw somebody peering through, like looking through the cracks, if you will, at us as we're driving around. We stopped the car. We got out. We asked the gentleman if it would be okay if we could. I said, I'm a member of Congress. My name is Jim Bridenstine. I'm on the Armed Services Committee. I represent the 1st District of Oklahoma. And I told him I'd like to talk to the person in charge of the facility. He made a radio call, and they called back and said, look, if he'd like to take a tour, he can come back on July 21st. This was on July 1st, by the way. So they wanted me to wait 21 days. And I said, make sure he understands I'm a member of Congress and this is federal property. And he did. He made another radio call. And eventually the gentleman came down who seemingly runs the facility. And he said, look, we can't accommodate any visitors until July 21st, and you have to go through the legislative liaison for Health and Human Services. At which point I said, look, you do understand I am a member of Congress, and this is federal property. And he said, yes, I understand that. There were security guards around. It was very clear that I was not going to be welcomed as a visitor, and so we left. We called the Deputy Communications Director for HHS. His secretary answered the phone and told me that he would only communicate via email. I said, make sure he understands I'm a member of Congress. And she put me on hold. She came back and she said, hey, he'll be happy to accept your email. This is unsatisfactory. As you're aware, there are terrible stories happening here as it relates to the southern border of the United States. There are now children in northern Mexico who have died trying to make it into the United States. Stories from Lackland Air Force Base have indicated that 30% of the females, and we're talking about young girls, 10 years old, 11-year-old, 12, 30% of the females have been raped or abused trying to get here. There are stories of human trafficking. A lot of these children are being leased. The belief is in Central America, if you come with a child, you're more likely to be able to stay than if you come without a child. So there are children being leased in human trafficking violations. And all of this is happening because the President of the United States has told everybody that if you're a child and you come to the United States, you will not be deported. And at the same time, he refuses to enforce the southern border of the United States. He has created this crisis. Then he goes on national television and he says that it's the Republicans' fault because Republicans won't pass comprehensive immigration reform. I want to be clear. This has nothing to do with comprehensive immigration reform. This has everything to do with the president who refuses to enforce the law as it relates to the border of our country, number one. And number two, he advertises to the world that if you step foot on American soil, you become a fabric of our society and you can stay. That's what's happened here. The president will tell folks that the crime and the poverty in Central America, we're talking about El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, is what's causing this crisis. And I'm here to tell you, I'm a Navy pilot. I've spent a lot of time doing counter-drug missions down in Central and South America. I have flown many missions from El Salvador myself. The crime and poverty is true, but it is not any worse now than it was 2 years ago when I was there. The only difference is that the president has advertised that if you come to the United States, you can stay. That's the difference.
Congressman, I know that
this is resulting in human suffering.
Congressman, we're running a little out on time here. We have to head for a break. May I ask you, I know that we got you just a little bit late. Can we ask if you could please stay through the break because we'd like to continue this conversation? Do you have time?
I'd be happy to.
Wonderful. Okay. Mario Lopez, I know you're also with us as well. Mario, I'm going to ask you to hold on, please, because we're going to take a break, come back on the other side. We want to bring you into the conversation as well with the Congressman. You good to go?
I am.
Outstanding. Okay. So here's a story right here. We have a U.S. Congressman who is joining us from Oklahoma, Jim Bridenstine, who was not allowed to go in and see what was happening on the ground. We're going to find out from him, Mario Lopez. We're going to move this discussion forward just a little bit more as we continue on MidPoint, where every day we question everything.